And take two. Hello everybody, my name is Brandon. Welcome back to the channel. I am here today to talk about my top 6 album discoveries from 2019. So much like with my other discovery videos, these are simply albums I listened to for the first time in 2019, so the release year doesn't matter, only the fact that I heard it for the first time last year. Now, I will also throw out a disclaimer. Of all the pieces of media I would like to discuss, I feel the most inept when it comes to talking about music. I love music, and it's always been an important part of my life, kind of in different ways as I've gotten older. And I remember, like, the first 3 albums I ever got and just how important those were to me, which I've talked about it before, but Green Day Dookie, TLC Crazy Sexy Cool, and The Presidents of the United States of America. I think that was a self-titled album. Those were so important to me. I used to listen to music in my room all the time and just be emo because that's what you do when you're in middle school. And so music has always played an important role in my life. I don't know that I'm really the best person to be talking about music because I don't know kind of the ins and outs of it, where I feel I'm much more confident talking about film, talking about books, things like that. But either way, I'm going to give it a shot. These are not going to be real deep thoughts about it, just kind of the songs that stood out to me. I want to pick a favorite track from each of these 6 albums and just talk about why this album hit me so hard last year. Number 6 on my list is going to be The Mountain by Dierks Bentley from 2018. I'm a huge Dierks Bentley fan, and I'm also a huge country fan. If I'm not listening to an audiobook, chances are I will have on the local country music station. Or if I'm at work, I tend to listen to the modern country station on Apple Music. It's just a genre I grew up loving, and it's just one that's near and dear to my heart, and one I enjoy quite a bit. I apologize, I know country music is a very divisive genre, and so I apologize if you don't like country, but hopefully you'll stick with the video anyway. Thanks to Apple Music, I've been able to dive more deeply into Dierks Bentley's discography, and though this is also the most recent, it really stands out to me as his strongest work. There are just so many songs on here that are catchy and stick with me. The way I found this album, though, was from a song called Living, and this is one I heard on the radio first. The lyrics really hit me in the right way, and so I decided to check out the album, and that's kind of what got me on a Dierks kick for a while. I started listening to all his discography, and even after listening to it multiple times, Living still stands up as one of the strongest tracks on this album. Burning Man is another track that I think is a radio hit already, but if not, it definitely could be because it just has that radio feel to it, which I can't really explain, but I imagine that you know what I mean. It's a great track. I know even amongst country music fans, there is kind of a divide between the more recent poppy country and maybe like 80s and 90s and early 2000s country, and then of course like the traditional old style country, which I'm not a big fan of. I like more of the kind of what I was introduced to, so that 80s, 90s, 2000s country, and then I really love the country music that there is today. And Dierks Bentley's The Mountain is a great example of what's so great about this pop-infused country. So I'm forcing myself to pick a favorite track on each of these albums, and so my favorite on The Mountain has to be Living, even though I talked about it already and that seems kind of weak because it is the radio song. To me, there really isn't another one that stands above it when it comes to the power of the lyrics, the meaning behind it, and how poignant it feels. And just the musicality behind it is so wonderful. It's just a great song that I highly recommend checking out. So number 6 is Dierks Bentley's The Mountain from 2018. Number 5 on my list is Singular Act 2 by Sabrina Carpenter, and that one was released last year. I get a lot of recommendations from Chris, who is another Cinefessions contributor, and this is one that I actually heard about through him. He talked about how great it was, so I gave it a shot, and I was just blown away. One, because I had no idea that Sabrina Carpenter was even a musician. To me, she was just a little girl from Girl Meets World, but obviously she is much more than that, which I had no idea, and so just hearing this album, I was really surprised by how strong she is as a musician. This is one where you have to really enjoy modern day pop to like this album because it's very much a product of its time. They do a lot of different things with Carpenter's voice on this album, but I think it's done in such a way that it doesn't distract from the music at all and only enhances it, and it keeps everything interesting, and it just keeps the album fun. If I had to pick a favorite here, I'd probably go with Take Off All Your Cool. It may not be the best representation of the album as a whole. For that, I'd probably go with I'm Fakin', but I just love the song. It's very personal. It's very, it's a fun song to listen to, and it's very catchy. And so that's why I picked Take Off All Your Cool. It's probably my favorite track on the album. Singular Act 2 it's just an album that I could listen to, and I have listened to over and over again throughout the entire day, and it just doesn't get old. It's not the deepest album in the world, which, I mean, given Sabrina Carpenter's age, that kind of makes sense, but it's fun. it's catchy, and it's upbeat. And that's why it's ended up as my 5th favorite discovery of 2019, Sabrina Carpenter's Singular Act 2. My number 4 discovery of 2019 is going to be Girl by Maren Morris from 2019. So this is an album that actually my sister introduced me to, and it's one that took me 2 listens to really fall for it. But since then, I've probably listened to this album at least 25 times. It's excellent. The titular track kicks off the album, and it really lays the foundation for what Morris is trying to do with this country pop-infused mix of awesome. I don't know how else to say it. And this first song definitely has some meaning behind it. There is a message that Morris is trying to convey here, but she goes from this song to the next 2 tracks, which are just fun, almost party tracks. They're just so different, but they're very catchy and a lot of fun to listen to. The pop feeling on this album probably peaks with Common. Now, that said, there is a song called RSVP, which shows up later, and that one has a very pop feel to it as well. So you could argue that either one of them is kind of the peak of that pop feeling that she's going for as well, but really either one is just an awesome example of her combining those 2 genres with a ton of success. She does end the track on a more country feel. She slows it down a little bit with Good Woman and Shade, and they just top off what is nothing short of an excellent album. This is just another great example of why I love that pop-infused country that we've started to kind of be introduced to in the latter part of the decade. The radio track here is called The Bones, which is a good song, but it's not my favorite on the album. For that, I would have to pick Make Out With Me, which is more of a love song than kind of anything else on the album, but it's awesome and just definitely worth checking out. So number 4 on my list is Girl by Maren Morris from 2019. Number 3 on my list is going to be Blurry Face by 21 Pilots from 2015. I understand that I am way late to the party on this one, but over the past 2 months now, I've just become obsessed with 21 Pilots, and I've listened to their entire discography multiple times over and over throughout the day because they're awesome. And though I've listened to all the albums multiple times and they all bring something unique and interesting to the table, really the best of the best for me has to be Blurry Face. This album just blends so many different genres together, and it does it masterfully, as if they've been doing it their entire lives. This is one that stands out to me for its musicality and its beat more than the lyrics, but that's totally fine with me. The first 2 tracks were ones that I'd heard previously, but they are fantastic. Those 2 being Heavy Dirty Soul and Stressed Out, which you probably know if you heard them, if you don't know them by title. It's the 3rd track that kicks off the New to Me music, and it starts it on a fantastic note with one of my favorites from the album called Ride. There's almost this reggae feel to it, and it would feel inauthentic in lesser hands, but the way 21 Pilots does it, they own it, and it just kicks ass. And then you go from this reggae feel up to this hip hop feel, or this rap feel, and it's so different, but yet it still feels cohesive and it works really well. This is probably the album that's been the hardest to pick a favorite on, but I'm gonna go with the song called Not Today. It's upbeat and it kind of stands out from the rest of the songs on the album because of, at least for my ignorant ears, it seems to rely more heavily on brass instruments than the rest of the album. And so because of that, it stands out, it's unique, and it's just another one. I've said this 1,000 times today, I understand, but it's just another one that's fun to listen to, and that's really what I'm looking for in my music. Really, this album just defies a genre. It blends rap, reggae, rock, electronic music, pop, all these different genres to create its own unique feel that is very distinctly 21 Pilots, and I loved the hell out of it. I'm so glad I decided to give these guys a shot this year. So that's why 2015's Blurry Face by Stone Temple Pilots comes in at number 3 on my list. All right, so number 2 on my list is Lover by Taylor Swift from 2019. Anyone who knows me knows that I'm obsessed with Taylor Swift and have been for about the past 15-ish years or so. I love her as an artist, and I think she continues to get more unique as she goes on. Ever since she really left the country genre behind, she continues to grow and just produce some of the best, most unique music that I hear each and every year. I simply just love her work, and Lover is another excellent release from her. For me, I don't know if anything will ever top 1989 as being her greatest album, but Lover, if it is a second place, it comes in a very close second place. The only other album I listened to more than Lover in 2019 is the one that I'm going to talk about next, but it really only earns that title because of the fact that it was out longer than Lover has been out. This album is just filled with so many tracks that They make me want to dance, which that's not a pretty sight for anyone, I assure you. I can't help but sing along because these songs are insanely catchy, and that's exactly what I look for in a pop album nowadays. I knew since the release of the You Need to Calm Down music video that this album had the potential to be something special, and T Swift delivered in spades. I mean, she brings back the Dixie Chicks in one of her songs. I mean, what more do you need? It's the Dixie Chicks. That song, Soon You'll Get Better, is probably the sweetest and most poignant track on the album. It's emotional, it's genuine, it's beautiful. I absolutely love it, and I love that she brought back the Dixie Chicks, who, frankly, are just underrated. The only thing that was wrong with the Dixie Chicks is that they were about 10 years ahead of the political curve, and so they got a ton of hate from everybody, but it was not deserved. They are fantastic, and I'm glad that they are making a comeback now, because what is not to love about the Dixie Chicks? They are amazing. Picking a favorite from this album is just silly, frankly, because I love all of these tracks. But aside from the ones I've already highlighted, I will mention that Miss Americana and the Heartbreak Prince is one of my absolute favorites on this album. Of course, I absolutely love I Forgot That You Existed, You Need to Calm Down, and Me, but one of the kind of maybe lesser talked about tracks I feel like is Miss Americana and the Heartbreak Prince. It's just a great song. I mean, there's not much else I can say about that I haven't already said about the rest of the album, but check it out if you're looking for one that is not one of the popular ones from the album. Frankly, this album is just fantastic. Taylor did it again. So my number 2 discovery from 2019 is Taylor Swift's Lover. And finally, my favorite album discovery from 2019 is Laps Around the Sun by Chris Lane. And this was released in 2018. I've been in the habit of becoming addicted to a country album over the past few years and just listening to it over and over and over again. In 2018, there were 3 really. It was Lanco, Kane Brown, and Thomas Rhett, all 3 of which would have been on a list like this had I made one last year because they were all excellent. But for 2019, it's going to be Chris Lane's Laps Around the Sun. To be frank, this is probably the most generic album on the list, but that doesn't mean I don't love it. I know probably 99% of all the lyrics on every song just because I've listened to this over and over and over again. It is an excellent country music album. And it's really another great example of that pop-infused country, but to a much lesser degree than something like Girl from Maren Morris. There are love songs, there's songs about fishing, songs about drinking. I mean, it is a country music album after all. But there's also a ton of fun songs like New Phone Who's This? And a song called Number One, both of which I absolutely have to sing whenever they come on. The album ends on a song called Hero, and full disclosure, I am not a religious person in the least. But even if you take out the religious aspect of this song, the lyrics have such a great message behind them and such great meaning. And it's just absolutely the perfect way to end this album. I apologize for the crying. My daughter just woke up and she's not very happy. Hero really showcases not only what Lane believes in and what's important to him, but it's also a great example of his vocal talents. That and Number One, which just both are just great vocal songs for Chris Lane. Picking a favorite from this one is very, very difficult again, but picking one I'd have to go with I Don't Know About You. This is a love song with an excellent beat and tons of replayability, and it's just a great example of what you're going to get with the rest of the album if you just wanted to try one song. Laps Around the Sun may not set the world on fire for being unique, but it's a strong example of country music done right, and it's the number 1 album I discovered in 2019. Alright, so that's going to do it for today. I thank you guys so much for watching. If you like what you watch, please consider subscribing. If not, thank you anyway for watching. I really appreciate it. Let me know down in the comments below, what was the best album that you listened to last year? And if you have a least favorite, put that down there as well. Alright, so I want to say thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you next time. And now I get to go see if my wife needs help with the baby. Yay, screaming babies!